He was one of the greatest pharaohs ancient Egypt had ever seen. The greatest builder, the most fearless fighter, and the father of more than 100 children. New evidence now suggests that he was also the unnamed pharaoh of the biblical Exodus. He was Ramses the Great. Is this the pharaoh who went head-to-head with the God of Israel? Is this the only face from the Bible that we may ever see? The world would know as Ramses the Great. Ramses waged the greatest battle any pharaoh ever fought. Outnumbered, in hostile territory, he fought his way out when those around him were ready to run. Ramses knew how to fight. The only battle he may ever have lost was with the God of the Israelites. Cairo. This is where the business of running the country took place. When Ramses came to power, he moved the capital to an area called the Delta, about 100 miles north of Memphis. Here, the Nile branches out into tributaries, and the entire land becomes lush and green. But Ramses didn't move the capital because of the climate. You see, he was a military man, and it was a military reason that led him to build his city named Ramesses in the north. It was the ideal place to launch military strikes, north to Syria and west to Libya, Egypt's traditional enemies. So he built an entire new city and dreamed of the hordes of treasure he could bring back to Egypt. This may be the city that the Bible says the Pharaoh forced the Israelites to build. Ramses' new city became a bustling complex of palaces, temples, storehouses, workshops, and barracks. Ramses had grown up an army brat, and he was comfortable around a military post. It was from this new city that he would lead his legions to the victories that would make him Ramses the Great. By the time he was 25, Ramses was the leader of the largest professional army the ancient world had ever seen. The army was made up of infantry and charioteers. The infantry numbered more than 20,000. Their weapons were the battle axe, spear, and sickle sword. Because maneuver there, chariots had to be light, so they broke easily, and only a few have survived. 20,000 soldiers followed Ramses out of Egypt. They planned to capture Kadesh and all the territory around it. The soldiers were divided into 4 divisions of 5,000, each division named after a god of Egypt: Amun, Re, Ptah, and Set. As Ramses rode out in his gilded chariot, with the army stretching for miles behind him, he had no doubts about his coming victory. Ramses had never been close to defeat. Soon Kadesh would surely be his. Ramses the Great was leading the most powerful military force the world had ever seen. They passed swiftly through Gaza, northward into Canaan, up through Galilee. When they entered Syria, they would have seen vast areas of green, with wildflowers unknown in Egypt. And in the distance, snow-capped mountains, probably the only time any of them had ever seen snow. Eager to reach his goal, Ramses rose early, put on his battle garments, and led the division of Amun towards Kadesh. Stretching miles behind were the other 3 divisions. As Ramses neared the Orontes River, 2 local tribesmen joined the entourage. They told Ramses that the Hittite king, Mutwalis, upon hearing that Ramses was approaching, had fled with his army 120 miles north to Aleppo. To the young Ramses, this seemed perfectly reasonable. Eager for victory, with only the division of Amun, he pressed right on, right up to Kadesh, leaving his other 3 legions to catch up. With the arrogance of youth, he had left the bulk of his army behind. Ramses decided to camp on a knoll, where he would have a clear view of the fortified city. The next day, he intended to take Kadesh and all its treasures. It was too good to be true. As Ramses set up camp, his sentries caught 2 Hittite spies and beat the truth out of them. Ramses had been lured into a trap. Mutwalis was waiting in the woods just behind Kadesh with 40,000 troops. As Ramses and his officers made emergency plans, the Hittites attacked. Their charioteers charged out, cutting the lagging division of Ray in half, almost totally destroying it. Then they went straight for Ramses' camp. Chariots were being repaired. Infantrymen tended to each other's tired feet. Supplies were being distributed. Ramses' pet lion was being fed. They were totally unprepared for what was coming. Breaking through the barrier of Egyptian shields that formed an enclosure around the camp, Hittite chariots surprised the tired troops. With the Egyptian army in a state of confusion, Ramses took control. He cried out, "Stand firm. Steady your hearts, my army, that you may behold my victory. I am alone, but Amun will be my protector. His hand is with me." As Ramses rallied those around him, he jumped into his chariot, said a prayer to Amun, and charged. It never occurred to him that he could lose. Surprising the Hittites with his bravery, Ramses saved the day. Marshaling his troops, he charged the Hittites 6 times. Finally, the Hittite chariots were forced to flee across the river. Ramses carved the story of the Battle of Kadesh on the walls of all his temples, creating the most detailed account of any battle in ancient history. It was a story that Ramses never tired of telling, and the Egyptians loved to hear it. But soon, he would have a totally different kind of battle on his hands, a battle with the God of the Israelites. One of the great archaeological mysteries of our time is the biblical story of Exodus, one of the most crucial parts of the Old Testament. Supposedly, 600,000 Israelites left Egypt, but there is hardly any direct archaeological evidence to support it. And one of the central characters in the story may be Ramses the Great. But did it happen? According to the Bible, the Israelites living in the Delta had grown too numerous, and in an attempt to control them, the Pharaoh was forcing the Israelites to build the store cities of Pithom and Ramesses, where the army supplies were stored.